Alright, hello everyone, this is Venom, and we are back with another Palworld video. Today we're going to be going over probably my most extensive video to date, and that's going to be over pal breeding. Now, I'm going to be going over every aspect of making your pal stronger, not just the actual breeding. I'm going to be going over everything from the beginning, because you never know when it's somebody's first video, so I'm going to be going over everything from leveling, to condensing, to the actual ins and outs of breeding. So I'm going to divide up the video into sections. I'm going to start from the beginning with leveling, and I'm going to end with all the stuff with breeding. Now, if you're a veteran breeder, most of this you're probably going to know already. If you're new to the game, this is all going to be good information for you, so I'll put timestamps down below so you can jump to the portion you want to get to. So that being said, we're going to start with the leveling. Now, leveling pals in Palworld is just like you level in any other game. You do battle, you do other things, and your pals and your character will get experience. Now, as of right now, with the Feybreak update, the maximum level for you and your pals is 60. Now, I want you to keep something in mind before we go over pal leveling, and that is that no matter what level your pal is, they can't function any higher than your level. So let's say, for example, I was level 5 and somebody gave me a level 60 pal. Well, that pal would only function as a level 5 pal. It would be level 60, but I would not, be overpowering everything out there. It would still be functioning as a level 5 pal. So no matter what level your pal is, it can't be functioning higher than what your level is. So if you're maxed out, then you can use maxed out pals. If you're a level 2, then your pals will only function as a level 2, so on and so forth. That being said, how do you actually level up your pals? How do you get experience? Well, the main ways are going to be through battling. It's going to be battling anything from any pals out in the field to any bosses, anything along those lines. Any battle experience you get, any pals in your team are going to get, even if they are knocked out. So the pals who are in your party who aren't actually actively out are going to get experience even though they're not actually battling. And again, your knocked out pals will get experience too. Now, another way to get it is through crafting. Right now, I'm in my base, and you can see in the top left side, I've got pals who are getting experience. That's because I have a couple of pals out there crafting up some food right now. So, if you're in your base and you've got anything crafting going on, then the pals with you will also get experience. Now, the next thing you can do is going to be experience manuals, and the final thing are going to be crystals. So, we're going to go, those are items. We're in here now. So, we got these experience manuals here. Now, there are 4 kinds. I've only got 3 right now. But they come in small, medium, large, and XL. Now, each manual is going to give you more experience depending on its level, with the XL being the most. And you're going to find these manuals in treasure chests and in dungeon treasure chests. You're going to find them a lot there. And then there are some pals that will actually drop them. Now, your best way to get them, in my opinion, is going to be going through dungeons. You should be doing a lot of dungeon runs anyway, and the higher level dungeon you do, the higher area you're in, the better manuals you get. So, for example, I'm in Feybreak, so I've been getting a lot of XL manuals. I was almost out, and I'm back up to 111 right now. Now, the final way is going to be training crystals. This is going to be the hardest thing to get. They will level up your pal by 1 level. The manuals will give you experience, but the training crystal will just straight up give you a level. Now, this is best to be used. Well, the best time to use this is if your pal's going from level 59 to 60, because the more experience you get, the higher level you are, the more experience you need. So technically speaking, number-wise, the absolute best time to use a training crystal is from 59 to 60. But if you're a high level, like, 55, 56, 57, you want to drop a couple crystals to maximum up to 60, go ahead. But keep in mind, these are much harder to get than training manuals because you get these from raids. So you aren't just going to find these lying around, you're going to be getting these from raids, which means you're probably already at a point where manuals aren't going to do much for you anyway, and you're already pretty deep into breeding, or you got a lot of maxed out pals. So those are going to be the main ways to level up. Now, as pals level up, they're going to get a couple of things. They're going to get a bump in stats, and B, they're going to start learning new moves as they get older, as they get more leveled up there. Now, your pals will automatically learn moves, and they will automatically overwrite whatever move they had in that slot before. However, don't worry if they do that. You can always go back in and relearn whatever move your pal has learned in the past. So, let's say it had Spirit Fire before, and it learned Nightmare Ball or Rush Beak, and you wanted to go back and learn it. You just click on the move you want, or you want to get rid of. You click on the move you wanted to learn, and boom, you're good to go. And you can always go back. So whatever move a pal learns, it will never forget it. You just got to go back and reactivate it. And each pal, of course, can have 3 moves. Now, what are the best ways to level up your pals? Personally, I'd say just fighting enemies in the strongest area you can get to. The ore rigs are really good. The other way is going to be once you've got a bunch of manuals stacked up, you can go ahead and very quickly level up PAL or 2 using them. Now, they're not going to get as much experience as you would think. I'm going to show you, I'm going to give an example here. Here's a training manual, the medium one. I'm going to try to level up my Ragnarok. Now, the top right here, you can see how much experience it's got. It needs 332,000 experience to level up. You can see how much experience I'm getting here with the manual. I'm only getting about 1,000 experience each. I'll use the large manual. You can see just how slowly the bar is still going up. It's not going up very much at all. I use the extra large manual. It's going up more, going up much more, but as you can see, it's diminished return. So the more, it's up to 58. You can see the more I use it, the less experience, or the less the bar moves. And here we go, almost to 60. So I had 111 manuals, and I'm down to 38, and that was just getting my Ragnarok up a couple of levels. So as you can see, they're definitely going to be better off to use on lower level pals, and then once they're a bit up there, either use the crystals or go ahead and take them to an area you can actually farm at with a bunch of strong enemies. Now let's go ahead and move on to Condensing Pals, section 2. Alright, next up we're going to talk about the PAL Essence Condenser, and we're going to talk about PAL Souls. Now, first off, we got the PAL Essence Condenser, which is unlocked at level 14 under Ancient Technology. So you're going to need Ancient Tech points to actually create this thing. So, it takes Palladium fragments, ingots, and Ancient Civilization parts, and here it is out in the world. It's a pretty big item here. You're going to open her up. And here it's going to show you all the pals in your party and all the pals in your pal box. Now, it's not going to show you any pals you got around in your base. This is just the pals that are in your pal box and the ones in your party. Now, I'm going to quickly go over to my Pernilias, and I'm going to show you how this works. Now, right now, you can see I've got this Pernilia highlighted, and you see on the right side, it's got its picture, and underneath it, it's got a bunch of empty stars. Right now, this is a 0-star Pernilia. Whenever you capture a pal, and whenever you breed one, it's going to automatically have no stars. They're all going to be blank. Now, the point of condensing pals is to make that pal stronger, and especially to make its pal skill stronger. But it's not just going to be its pal skill, it's going to also increase its stats. Now, the higher star pal you've got, the stronger it's going to be, and you typically want maxed out pals for your raids, or just have strong pals in your team. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to choose which pal you actually want to get stronger. Now, in this case, I knew beforehand which one I wanted. It's going to be this Pernilia right here. Okay, it's got some things I want to keep on it, so we're going to keep it. We're going to highlight it first, and now we're going to choose other pals of the same type that we want to condense into it. Now, these first 4 are the ones we're going to condense into it, but before we do that, I want you to take a look at the bottom here. This little bar right here. It's got a 0 out of 4 on it. Okay, that means it's going to take 4 pals to get this up 1 level. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. We're going to choose the 4 pals that we want to go ahead and condense into it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I'm going to hit begin condensation. There we go. Okay, and now if we click on that pal now, you see it's got 1 star highlighted on it, okay? And you can see its stats have gone up, and if you look at its pal skill, it's gone up to level 2 as well. You can see Prayer for Abundant Harvest is now level 2, okay? Now, if you look at the bottom, we're going to highlight them again. If you look at the bottom, it no longer says 0 out of 4, it says 0 out of 16. So every time you level up a pal, its stars, it's going to take more and more pals to do it. To go up to 1 star, it's going to take 4 pals. To go up to 2 stars, it's going to take an additional 16 on top of the original 4, okay? Once you do that, to get to level 3, it's going to take 32 additional pals. And then finally, for the 4 star, it's going to take an additional 64 pals. I believe it takes 116 total pals to condense into 1 to get a 4 star. So that's how you get those super strong pals, by condensing them like that. Now again, what is the point of condensing pals? Well, the big thing is for battle is going to be your stats. It's going to increase your stats, but it also, like I said, increases your partner skills. So right now, for example, the Pernilia's got an ability called Prayer for Abundant Harvest. The one I've got highlighted right now is level 2. I've got some in my base right now deployed that have that at level 5 because they're 4-star pals. So at 4 stars, that'll be level 5. And that increases my harvest significantly. Now, Typically, when you're doing stuff like farming or when you want battle pals, you do want to try to get them up to level 4 if you can. So it's typically going to take a lot of pals to do so. Now, some pals are really easy to catch. You can just go out and catch all the pals you want to go ahead and condense into one. Some you're probably going to have to breed, especially when it comes to like legendary pals or pals from Rage. You're going to have to breed those up because you can't breed them naturally. You can't get them by combining 2 other pals of different species. The legendary pals typically can only be bred with 2 of the same pals. So, for example, Jetragon, I can't breed 2 random pals together to get one. I can only get a Jetragon by breeding 2 Jetragons together. So if you're trying to 4-star legendary one, it's going to take a lot of pals. So right here I've got a Xenolord that's 4-star, it's maxed out. I had to breed a lot of Xenolords to actually make enough to put in there. So that is all there is to do with condensation. We're going to go over the pal souls next. Alright, next up we're going to talk about the Statue of Power and pal souls. Now, using the Statue of Power, you're going to be able to increase not only your pal's stats, but your player stats as well. Now, the Statue of Power is unlocked at level 6 using regular points, and here it is right here. It is an Anubis holding a fireball, and honestly, it is one of the most badass looking things you could ever see. Now, when you come up to it, you've got 2 options. You can enhance your player stats, or you can enhance the pal stats. Now, for player stats, you actually use those green life mug statues you find all around the map, and you increase your capture rate of pals. Now, right now, I believe level 14 is the max. I'm maxed out already, but as you increase your capture rate, obviously becomes easier and easier to capture pals. So make sure you're picking up all those life mug statues because it takes more and more statues to level up. I think it took like 51 or 57 to get my max level, but each time you level up, it takes more and more and more. So you're going to be going through hundreds of these things. Now, we're not really here to talk about the player stats, though, although even though it says enhance player stats, the only stat you can enhance is capture rate, so keep that one in mind. But we are here to talk about the pal stats. We're going to go here to enhance pals, and this is where we're going to talk about pal souls. Now, pal souls are items you can find in the world. You can find them on the ground often enough. They look like clear little crystals you see on the ground. Some pals drop them. You can get some all over the place, but they come in 3 varieties. They come in small, they come in medium, they come in large, and as a Feybreak, they also come in giant. Now, these souls serve one purpose, and that is to increase the stats of your pals. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit on how that works. So here we've got my Astagon, Artemis, and I've not increased his stats. We're going to go ahead and do so. Now, the way it works is you open this up, and you've got 4 different stats you can increase. You can increase the health, attack, defense, and work speed of your pal. Now, souls you're going to go through a lot of souls, okay? You don't want to waste souls if you don't have to. So you want to make sure you know what it is your pal's going to be doing before you increase its stats. If you got a pal who's going to be working around the base, you don't want to waste a bunch of souls on health, attack, and defense. You don't want to worry about work speed. Now, if you got a pal or pals that you're going to be setting up for a raid or something, you don't want to worry about work speed. You want to worry about health, attack, and defense. So you're either going to be increasing the health, attack, and defense, or you're going to be doing the work speed. That is my suggestion to you. If you're OCD or you just really want to increase everything on your pals, feel free to do so. Now, that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what it takes to actually level these up. Now, this will pull souls automatically from the inventory in your base, and we're going to go ahead and level up the max health on my Astagon here. So you can see we can go ahead and increase it, and each increase increases it by 3%, and it shows you what souls are required, okay? And here in the bottom, it'll tell you what souls are consumed. So right here, we're going to go through, and I'm going to increase and keep, sorry, I went past where I wanted to. Okay, so you can get the first 3 levels using small souls, okay? They'll get you up to 9%, and then it switches to medium souls. So that'll actually take us up to 18%, okay? Now, past that, we're going to need to use large souls, okay? That'll take us up to 27%. Past large souls is when the giant souls come in handy, and you're going to use a lot more giant souls than anything else. Again, that just came out in Feybreak, the giant souls, but that's what you're going to want to be farming because that's going to be what takes the most. Like you saw, everything else, they went up after, they would go up after 3. So you can see right here, small took 3, then it went to the next one. So we got 3 medium, 3 large, and then after that, it's just all giant souls. So giant souls are what you really want to farm. And you can see just how many souls it takes at the bottom there. So to max out this Astagon's health, we're going to need 10 small souls. We're going to need 6 mediums, 6 larges, and it's going to take 30 of the giants, okay? Same thing with the attack, defense, and work speed. They're all the same. So that is how you actually increase the stats on your pal using the souls here. So let's go ahead and take a look at our attack here. You see the Astagon's attack is 1196. We're going to go ahead and increase that attack here all the way up. which will give us a 60% attack boost. We'll go ahead and hit enhance. And you can see we're up to 1914. That is a massive, massive boost. Now again, same thing for health and defense. You can go ahead and increase those up. I don't got the souls to do it right now, but that's how you do it. So that's how people get all these crazy pals to do raids. If your pals are dying quickly and they seem like they're dying in 1 or 2 hits, you probably need to go ahead and give them the souls they need to level up to. Now, as far as farming pal souls, if you're at the point to where you need tons and tons of souls, then you can probably go ahead and do it. The best way to do it right now is breeding Anubises, although that is going to really depend on what the egg hatching rate is on your server. If you're on these special servers, they are pretty slow. Like I said, on my server, there is no egg hatch rate. You can hatch your eggs immediately, so breeding Anubises is super easy for us. We can get the souls we need. I just haven't gotten to and done it in a while. But you can find souls all over. You can find them as crystals on the ground. You can find them in chests. You can get them off of pal drops. Now keep in mind, only certain pals drop them, but Anubis is probably going to be your best one. Breed Anubises and butchering them is going to give you tons of souls, and you are going to need tons of souls to increase the stats of your pals. And again, don't overlook on just how strong this increase is. It used to be only 30%, now it's 60%. That's a huge boost in your stats. And that does, of course, stack with any passive skills you got as well, so keep that one in mind. Next, let's go ahead and get to the main event, and that is going to be breeding. Alright, now let's talk about the main event, and that's going to be breeding. Now, there's a couple reasons that you would breed. One's going to be to get totally new pal species, and 2 is going to be making stronger pals, and there's a few different things that will make a pal strong through breeding, or I should say make the offspring strong. Now, first off, you're going to need a breeding farm, which you unlock at level 19. It takes wood, stone, and fiber. Then the second thing that I would suggest getting is going to be the ability glasses. In fact, these are pretty much going to be necessary for your in-game breeding because these glasses actually allow you to see the stats of your pals. Without these glasses on, you can't see your pal stats no matter what. So these breeding glasses or the ability glasses are going to be really important. And then I'll take Ancient Civilization cores. Your best bet to get these cores would be to run the ore rig at level 55. Otherwise, you can only get them by doing raids. But I would say doing the ore rig will be a lot easier. You can get yourself your pair of glasses. You only need 1 pair, and then you're going to be good to go. Now, along with your breeding stable, you're going to need cake. Now, cake, for every cake you make, you're going to get 1 egg from your free breeding pairs. Now, each stable has got its own box you can put the cake into. The cake never goes bad in there. In the fridge, it'll have a spoil timer, and the breeding box never goes bad. So that's why you want to make sure you got your cake. Now, for each cake, again, it's going to be 1 egg. Now, each cake's going to take flour, red berries, milk, egg, and honey. So you're going to want to set farms up for those if you're going to be doing a lot of breeding. The flour and everything, you can basically grow everything at your base, or farm it using pals. You can actually get the honey, the egg, the milk. They all drop from pals in the stable. The honey comes from the bee. I forgot what it's called. But the egg comes from the chickpea, and the milk comes from the mozzarella. The red berries, obviously, you grow, and the flour you grow, and then you actually use the dang mill to turn it into flour. Now, first, let's talk about different pal species. Now, right here, you can see I've actually got an Anubis and a Suzaku breeding. Now, you would think I would either get a Suzaku or an Anubis. However, Palworld's breeding system is a bit different. And now, with a lot of games, when you breed, you typically are going to get whatever the female is, or they might have some other system where it's a male. But in Palworld, they got a whole complicated calculation as to what combinations make what. Now, right here, you can see I've got Suzaku and Anubis breeding. I'm going to pick up one of the eggs here, and you actually see that they're making an entirely new species. And I'll go ahead and go in here. I'm going to hatch this egg. Like I said, my server's got no hatch timer, so I can immediately hatch it. And you can see they're making Euromentides. Okay? So you can make entirely new pal species by breeding. Now, I'm actually going to pull up a website right now. This is going to be a very, very important website for you if you want to get into pal breeding, because it's going to show you every combination of pals you can breed together to get whatever pal you want. Alright, so this is a Palworld breeding calculator. I'll put the link down below on how to get here. But you got 2 ways to use this. You can either A, select the parents that you've got, and it'll tell you what the child is going to be. Or if you want to find a specific way to get a certain pal, you can click on Find All Combinations for a Pal. For example, let's say we want to figure out how to get an Anubis. You click on Anubis, or you click on any other pal, and on the right here, it'll tell you every combination of pals you can breed together to get that pal. So every combination you see here, the Napia, the Gallade, the Napia and the Azarobi, Napia and Grintail, all these different combinations will make Anubis. And you can see there are a lot of different combinations here. I'm still scrolling down. There you go. That's a lot of combinations you can combine to make an Anubis. A lot of you wouldn't think it would make sense either. Like here I got an electric PAL and I got a fire PAL and it's going to make Anubis and Earth PAL. So yeah, using this calculator is going to be your best bet to find what combinations of PALs you want to breed to make these PALs. And the fact that there's so many different combinations is actually a good thing because it's going to give you a wider pool of abilities and passes to pull from, but I get into that more later on. Now, before we go any further, there is a hard rule about breeding that you need to keep in mind whenever you start breeding, and that is certain PALs cannot be bred into. Certain PALs, no matter what combination of PALs you breed, you're never going to get certain PALs. Now, most of these are going to be your epic and your legendary PALs. For example, Jet Dragon. I'll show you right here. You type in Jet Dragon, you click on it. The only way to get a Jet Dragon is to breed 2 Jet Dragons together, okay? Let's do another example here. See, this says legendary. Let's type in Xeno. So here we've got a couple different types. We got rare and epic. These are legendary. So click on them, and this is Xenovator. You can only get Xenovator by breeding Xenovator and Xenovator. Same thing with Xenoguard and Xenolord. Only those PALs will make those PALs. And these are 3 PALs that actually come down from meteor drops. So, yeah, there are some PALs that no matter what you do, you cannot breed into. It's going to become important later on when we're talking about breeding for passives, because that means a lot of passives that you want to get on these PALs, you're only ever going to get through mutations. They can't be passed over, or by using Dr. Braun, but we'll talk about him at the end. Alright, now, I mentioned before that there are actually 3 things you can pass down through breeding to actually make your PAL stronger. Those 3 things are going to be stats, and you can see right now, you can see the stats on the screen. That's because I'm wearing my stat glasses. If I didn't have those on, you would not be able to see these. So, you can pass on stats. Now, when you breed, there's a chance that you're going to get either the mother's or the father's stat, no matter what it is, and we've got health, attack, and defense as the stats that can pass down. You can either get either the mother's stat, the father's stat, or you got a chance to get a random stat. You can pass on passive skills, and again, there's always a chance you can pass on any passives from the mother and father, or you can get none of them, or you can even get a mutation. And the final thing you can pass on is moves. Now, as a Feybreak, the move portion of breeding is not nearly as time-consuming or as important as it used to be, thanks to the introduction of some new skill fruits that you can actually grow now. I'm not going to talk about moves too much. I'm just going to cover it right here because it's not really a factor anymore. But before, whenever you were breeding, very few eggs are going to come out of your breeding that are going to be perfect, the ones you want, because you're trying to get all 3 stats at 100. You're trying to get all 4 of your passive skills as the ones you want from the mother and father, and before you're actually trying to get certain moves passed down. Now, one of the moves that's really good for raids is a move called Holy Burst. The only way you used to be able to get that move was through breeding. Yakumo was a very important one because it had it on it, and it was typically what you would breed into other PALs to get that particular move. It was very popular to put that on Euromentides, Euromintide Ignises, all sorts of PALs that were used for raids. You wanted Holy Burst because it did multiple hits over a wide area, and it would hit bosses multiple times. It's pretty much one of, if not the most powerful and most popular move for raids. However, you no longer need to worry about trying to breed that move in because you can now give them the Power Fruit for it. You can actually make the Power Fruit for Holy Burst now. So moves, for the most part, are not really a factor in breeding anymore, which means breeding has become easier. We only got to worry about stats, and we got to worry about passives. Let's go ahead and talk about stats and passives real quick. Now, ideally, you want all of your PALs you're going to be fighting with, whenever possible, you want them to be at level 100, especially when it is a PAL you're going to be using for a raid. You want all the stats maxed out because they're all important for a raid. Your health is going to determine how much, damage you can take, what its health pool is. You want them to be pretty large for raids because raid bosses typically hit a wide area, can kill very quickly. You want to make sure that your PAL stays alive. Attack is going to, of course, determine how quickly they're taking out the boss or whatever else it is you're fighting. I'm using raids as an example here because that's kind of the in-game thing people breed for. They do a lot of breeding to get massive teams of perfect PALs for these raids. So when I talk about fighting, I'm usually talking about a raid in this context. So you want that attack stat as high up as possible, and you want your defense up as well, too, because you want to be able to take hits and not die. You want to do have the most damage done to you, okay? Now, again, when you're passing on these stats, let's say I'm breeding 2 Astigons together, even if the male and the female both have 100 in each stat, still a chance the baby's not going to get those. Now, you do want the parents to try to have maxed out stats if possible because there's a higher chance that they're going to get those 100 stats, but it's not a guarantee. Now, the other thing is, again, the passive skills. Now, you typically want to try to breed together pals that have the passives you want. I'm going to go over how that works in just a minute. But, again, there's only a chance that these passives are going to actually go to the parents. And I'm going to actually show you guys some breeding here live and show you just how this works. Now, we're going to talk about how these actually get passed on. I'm going to use some live breeding here as an example. So here I've got two Sootseers. Now, their attack and their health are the same at 41 and 53, but they got different defenses. The female's got higher defense at 86, and the male's got 58. Now, they both also have different passives. The female's got 3 passives. It's got Stronghold Strategist, Serious, and Sickly, and the male has got Nocturnal. Now, I'm going to come over here where they've laid a bunch of eggs, and I'm going to show you just what the spread looks like when we actually hatch these. Now, again, on my server, I've got no hatch time, so depending on what your server's hatch time is, whether you're playing in single player, whether you're playing on a server, a lot of this breeding is going to be a lot harder because there's some eggs that, even by default, take up to 72 hours to hatch. That can be kind of a pain in the butt, and like I said, I have mine turned all the way down, so I can usually get a lot more breeding done than somebody who's on an official server who's got to wait 3 days to even hatch 1 egg. So I'm going to go ahead and hatch all 10 of these. And we're going to go through and I'm going to show you what all of the different stats are. Even though we got very similar stats to mom and dad, and even though we got some passive that could easily be patched over, I'm going to show you what it's like to actually breed these and show you exactly how common that is. So here are all the Sootseers that I just hatched. Okay. Now we're going to remember that our parents have got 41 health and 53 attack. And then, of course, the female's got a higher defense. So technically, if we were trying to get the higher stats on here, we want to get all of them with 86 defense. That's what we'd be going for. But as you can see here, scrolling over here, the first Sootseer I'm showing you has got the 41 attack. It's got the 41 health, the 53 attack, but its defense doesn't match the male or the females. Okay, it didn't take on its parents' defense. Instead, it's got a random stat. So like I said, when you breed, there's no guarantee they're going to get that stat. This one took on a random stat for its defense. Now let's take a look at the passives. The passives we got, again, on the female, Stronghold Strategist, Serious, and Sickly, and of course the male's got Nocturnal. Let's take a look at this one. It's got Serious, which came from the female, but it didn't get any of the other female's passives. It also didn't get the male's passive either. It got, because that's Nocturnal, this one got Clumsy. That's one neither one of them had, so this is technically a mutation. Okay, this is one that can just pop up out of nowhere. Now, here's another website I'm going to be linking down below. This is a website that shows all the different passive skills, okay? Now, for the most part, most passive skills are just going to pop up randomly when you're breeding. You can find some when you capture pals. You can find some through breeding. Most of them are just going to be completely random. However, there will be a few that you can find on certain pals all the time. In fact, some are pretty much just guaranteed. So, for example, the Legend passive is going to be found on Palladius, it's going to be found on Necromus, it's going to be found on Ferstellion, it's going to be found on Ferstellion Knot, and it's going to be found on Jetagron. Every one you capture in the wild, or in the case of Ferstellion Knot that you breed, is going to have this passive on it. And the passive has 20% attack, 20% defense, and increases movement speed by 15%. Every time you get one of these pals, you capture them, it's going to have that passive on it. So you can then take that passive and breed it into other pals as well. So if you want to, say, give a pal Legend, you're going to have to get one of these bad boys and then breed it onto something else. Let's take another one. We got Eternal Flame. This is the one that is only found on Blazement Ryu. You're not going to find it anywhere else, okay? And this is always going to have it on it. You get a Blazement Ryu egg, it's from a raid, it's going to always have this passive on it. Now, there are a couple others, but those were the most notable one. But some of the others you can find here are going to be the Flame Emperor. Now, this one is Eternal Flame, but Flame Emperor can be found on Blazement. We've got Lord of the Sea, we got Lord of Lightning, Celestial Emperor, we got Earth Emperor, Ice Emperor, Spirit Emperor. These are all basically abilities that increase the elemental damage for that type. So all these different Emperor skills and Divine Dragon, they basically increase that type. So Divine Dragon increases Dragon attack, the Ice Emperor increases Ice, Lord of the Sea increases Water, yada, 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 okay? Now, there are also some common skills you can find as well that are also going to be on certain pals all the time. Astagon, looks like Warsect Terra and Warsect, as well as Dictoys, are always going to have hard skin. We got Hooligan on a couple. But for the most part, the ones you really care about are going to be the ones that are the Emperor ones that increase elemental damage, and these Rainbow skills. And as you notice, there are different levels to all these passives. We got 4 different levels. We've got the Rainbow level, which is new with Feybreak. It's pretty much the rarest passives you can get, and they typically are the best. Next up, we got the Gold level ones, and they are still pretty good. Next up, we've got just the regular passives. And then finally, we've actually got some negative skills. Now, there are some negative skills that are still pretty good, that are ones you could still want to use. The main one is going to be Mercy Hit. Mercy Hit kind of acts like a Ring of Mercy. And that POW will never be able to take another creature's health down to 0. If you want a good POW to help you catch other POWs, having Mercy Hit on it would actually be pretty good. But past that, most of the other negative skills here aren't going to be any good. They're going to be straight up debuffs. So use this chart to see what all passives are out there. That way it will help you kind of plan as you're breeding. So that was our first Soothsayer. Again, we saw it got a random mutation for the defense, and it got a mutation with the passive. It got clumsy. Neither of our parents had it. Let's take a look at the second one. Now, this one has got a couple mutations on it. The health and the attack are not the same health and attack that our parents have. Again, our parents have 41 and 53 for health and attack. This bad boy came out with 31 health and 38 attack, but it did get the father's defense of 58. Now, the next one here got Nocturnal Noble, which is a mutation. It got Hard Skin, which is a mutation, and it did take the Sickly from the mother. But let's take a look at the stats. It got the health and it got the defense from the mother, but look at its attack. It's only 3, so that's another mutation. So, that being said, you've seen what some of the weaker ones look like. I'm going to show you guys what some of the POWs look like when you're trying to actually breed good POWs. Now, let me give you an example of some POWs that I actually have that I am actually trying to breed for a purpose right now, and I'm trying to get some legitimate passives on right now. Now, right now, I've got a Suzaku and I've got a Anubis I've got breeding. Them combined makes Yormantide. Now, right now, my Suzaku's got 100 defense. I want my Yormantide to try to get those stats if possible, and it's also got the Artisan passive. I want my Yormantides to have Artisan because I'm going to be using them for work. I want their work speed to be increased, and that's what the Artisan passive does here. And it increases the work speed by 50%. Pretty significant. Now, I've also got a Anubis that's got 2 more passives on it that I want to bring over, and that's going to be Invader and Vampiric. Now, Invader will give 30% increase in Dark and Dragon damage. Yormantide is a dragon. No point in not getting him that. But the main one I want him to get is Vampiric. It says absorb a bit of absorb a portion of the damage dealt to restore health, and does not sleep at night and continues to work. Vampiric or Nocturnal would both be good because it'll keep the pal awake at night. And Artisan is going to be good because it's going to help its work speed. I want these Yormantides to be working, so I want it to stay up at night, and I want it to have increased speed. So that's why I really want them to get these 2 passives. Now, as far as the defense, it's one that would be nice to have, but it's not going to be for battle, so I'm not going to be too upset if it doesn't get it. But let's go ahead and see if our combination here has yielded any good results. So right now, I've actually got them over, let's see, I got so many of these breeding pins, I get real confused looking around. There they are, they're over here. Alright, let's count up our eggs. Looks like I got about 12, 13 eggs. Okay, I got 13 eggs that they laid so far. We're going to hatch them all, and you're going to see just how common some of these passive and stats are to actually go down to the children. And, by the way, here's kind of a pro tip. If you're using the 10 banger hatchery here, you can actually scroll over each one of these because it is kind of a pain to go through each of your pals one by one after they're bred to see what they got. If you just roll over each one here, it'll actually show you what they got on this screen here. You can even open it up with F, and it'll show you what the stats are, but I'm going to show you guys here in the pal box. Okay, so here are the Yormantides we just hatched. And again, we're looking for the Vampiric, and we're looking for the Artisan to be passed down. Those are our 2 big things we want. And if possible, we want the defense stat. But let's take a look at what we got. So this first one we got was perfect. It came out with Vampiric, it came out with Invader, it came out with Artisan, and I also got a mutation, Zen Mind. Okay. Now it also got our defense from our Suzaku, so that was kind of cool. So this one would be perfect for work. This is exactly what I was looking for. Next one, we got another good one. This one got the Invader, Artisan, and Vampiric, and it also got a mutation of Dragon Killer, which decreases incoming dragon damage, but it did not get the defense from Suzaku. Next one, this one got Vampiric and Artisan, so that's exactly what I'm looking for. So we're looking for passive on this one. It looks like this one right here, this first one did not get what we wanted. It got the Artisan, but it did not get the Vampiric, unfortunately. This one got it. This one got it as well. We're going to put this one back up here. This one only got Invader, so this would be another failed one. This one only got Invader, a failed one. Artisan, Vampiric, perfect. Only Artisan, that one failed, that one failed, that one failed, and That one failed. Now, out of 13 pals, only 6 got the 2 passes we were trying to pass over. And again, we weren't even really looking at to pass over the stats. It's just trying to get the passes we want. Now, what if you're trying to get your perfect pal bred? What if you're trying to get all 3 stats perfect at 100? What if you're trying to get all 4 of the passes passed over? Well, I'm going to show you what that looks like. All right, now let's take a look at a couple of pals I actually want to breed together to actually get some good stats and to get some good passives here. So here I have a Blaze Howl and I've got a Yormantide. Now these together are going to make a Yormantide Ignis. It's a very popular pal to use in raids. It is a Dragon Fire type, and I'm going to show you what it is we're trying to get out of it and what the eggs actually give us. So first off, let's take a look at the parents. So here we've got our Yormantide and our Blaze Howl. Now the Yormantide has got 2 moves that one move that I want. I want the Vampiric off of it. Now the Blaze Howl's got Invader and Serenity. Now I also have got max out stats on the Blaze Howl. So right now we got 1, 2, 3 factors because of the health, the attack, and the defense that we want to go over. And we've also got 1, 2, 3 different passes that we want to go over as well. As you can imagine, the chances of getting what you want are very, very low. You're going to be doing a lot of breeding to finally get the perfect pal you want. Now, obviously, if you have 2 parents that have the exact stats, having 2 parents that have 100 stats is going to drastically increase your chance. So, for example, if my Yormantide also had 100s across the board, it'd be much higher of a chance, not 100%, but about 50%, maybe around there, that you're actually going to come out with a pal with 100s in all 3. But then that's when your passives come in play too, because I still want to get the correct passives. And even if you've got the right passives on your parents, you can still get mutations in there as well. So right now we've got 4 eggs. It's not much, but I want to give you an idea of just how hard it is to typically get something here. Now we might get lucky. We might actually get a pal that's got everything. But let's go ahead and take a look here. Out of the 4 we got one that got Artisan, but no Vampiric, but it got Serenity. We got one that got Invader, Vampiric, and Serenity, so that one's cool. And this one's also an Alpha, too, which would also give it another bonus. If this bad boy came out with all 3 stats 100, this would be like a 1 in like a 10,000 pal right here. Even though, well, it doesn't have a 4th passive. I haven't gotten to that stage in this one yet, but it's pretty good. This one got Vampiric, Artisan, and Serenity, so not what we wanted from the passives, but this one got Invader, Vampiric, and Artisan again. So only one even got what we wanted out of the passives. Let's take a look at the stats. All right, I found the other 2. Okay, so here's the other 2. So this is the one right here that got all the passives I wanted, and it became an alpha, which would give it an increased bonus. But you can never really plan on something coming out as an alpha. But you can see it only got 1 of the stats we wanted. So even though it got all 3 of the passes that we wanted to pass on, it only got the health. Now, had this got the health, the attack, and the defense, this would be one that I would probably be very happy with. Now, that does not mean that this is going to be a useless pal. I've still got the passives on there. So what I can do is I can take this pal right here, and I can probably breed it with a Yormantide that's actually got 100s in all 3 of its stats. Although this is a female, I would need a male that's got all 100s in there. That one doesn't have it. This one's got it right here. So right here, if I were to try to breed these together, I've got a much higher chance, because you can see they both got 100 health. So I've got a much higher chance to get the health on this one. But again, we're going to have the low chances to get that attack and defense from the male. We're going to try to breed them anyway. And then you can see right here, we've got 3 passives on the female. We've got 4 on the male. Now, they both have Serenity, which means we're going to have a higher chance to get that one, but that's the only thing they have in common. Now, here's where the problem comes into. Both of these pals have got a lot of passives on here. Typically, if you wanted to try to breed easier, you want to make sure that the pals don't have any passives you don't want to pass on, because for every single passive you got on there, there's a chance it will pass on. Which means it's much better to have, say, this pal here on the right, the female, having Serenity, Invader, and Vampiric, and this pal here just having the 1 passive I want. As of right now, instead of having the 1 passive I want, it's got 4 different passives. So that means there's a chance for each one of these to pass on to the baby, as well as these 3, as well as any possible mutations they may get. So you got to keep that one in mind when you're breeding. Now, a few final things to talk about breeding. These are some details I didn't go over in the main part, but these are a few more things to keep in mind as far as the breeding process goes. Now, this is one I really want to reiterate here because it is very important. I mentioned before how you can only get certain pals by breeding those pals together, and I want to go back and talk about what I was talking about passes involving these before. Now, a rule of thumb, I'm just going to call them legendary pals. These are going to be pals that you cannot breed from other pals. So we're going to use Jetragon as an example. If I want to get Jetragon, a certain amount of passives. For example, let's say I want to give Jetragon the Vampiric passive, okay? I cannot take an Anubis, for example. I've got Anubis. It's got a Vampiric on it. There's no way for me to get that passive onto Jetragon because I can't breed Anubis to get Jetragon. I can only breed Jetragon to get Jetragon. Or again, Xenolord to Xenolord. Legendaries can only be bred with each other to get another of that same legendary. That means if there are any passives you want to get on your legendaries, you're going to have to get them through mutations. So that makes legendaries much, much harder to breed to get those mutations. They're worth it because they're legendaries and they're typically pretty strong, but you're only going to get all these passives that they don't come with by breeding. Right now, the big thing I'm trying to get is Vampiric on my Xenolord, and I still haven't got it because I've not got that mutation on any Xenolords or Xenolords I've bred so far. I got it on a random Anubis at one point, but again, I can't get it onto that Xenolord right now. So anything you're doing as far as legendaries is basically got to be done with it itself if you're trying to, get a legendary. The Jetragon I've got, it's got like Swift, it's got infinite stamina. It took about a week to get all those passives. Just breeding straight, it took about a week to get all those passives and those stats for that PAL onto the one I wanted. So it took a while to do that one. So keep that one in mind. Now, other PALs are much easier to do because you can pretty much interbreed them. So let's say right now, like I said, I've got an Anubis with Vampiric. I want to get that and a Jormuntide Ignis. That's what I've been doing is breeding it through the lines to pass that passive down to eventually get it to that one or to that PAL. So general rule of thumb is you can't breed a passive into legendaries, but you can breed them out. Remember, you can't breed in, you can breed out. When you're doing your initial PAL captures, make sure you've got your ability glasses on. If you're going out and capturing PALs for the express reason of breeding them, especially for battle, don't just take the first couple of PALs you see. You can actually find PALs out in the wild with 100 in certain stats. It may take a while, but it's going to save you a lot of time if you catch PALs that have hundreds in certain stats. It doesn't have to be in all three. The odds of that are super minuscule. But go ahead and farm PALs. Take out all the ones you don't want to mess around with or mess around breeding with because they've got too low stats. A lot of people say when you're breeding that you want to get into 70s and above. I'm saying if you want to save time, find those PALs with 100 stats. It's going to take you a while. Probably take you some hours to just find just one that has it. But hours is still going to be less than the days and weeks it's going to take you to try to breed in those stats. Now, there is one more way you can try to get stats and random passives, and that's going to be with an NPC called Dr. Braun. Now, Dr. Braun is an NPC you can find at random incident spots around the map, and that's the entire map, not just the Feybreak area, and he was introduced in Feybreak. What he does is, every day you can talk to him, you can actually pull a PAL out, you can talk to him, and he will do something random to it. He's either going to increase its stats by 15 each, he may give him a random passive, or he may actually decrease the stats by 30, and he can give him a random bad passive. So Dr. Braun, if you wanted to try to see what weird stuff you can get, you can actually just capture him and bring him to your base, or find him out in the world. Now, this is another map I'm going to link down below. This is a map of all the incident spots on Palworld. Now, incident spots are spots where you're going to find random events happening. It could be a syndicate attacking some PALs or something. It could be a wandering merchant. It could be Dr. Braun. Now, you're going to want to visit all these incident spots and see if you can find yourself a Dr. Braun and capture him. He is hard to capture, but I'm telling you it is worth it because trying to find this man can be a pain in the butt. When I actually started Feybreak, I found him by accident, and I had no idea he was a random NPC, so I thought he was going to stay there forever. I went back, he was gone. It took me all day to find him again. So capture yourself a Dr. Braun. What I did was I actually went to the desert up on here. I went to this desert here on Sakurajima, and all you do is you go to the incident spawn, you see what's there. If it's him, great, capture him. If it's not, whatever other incident there is, just go ahead and fly away, fly back, and keep doing that until Dr. Braun spawns. I think I did that for about an hour or two, and he finally spawned there, but he should be able to spawn at any incident point. So, if you want a little randomness in your breeding, go ahead and grab Dr. Braun. Now, there is one thing I would say about him. If you're going to use him and you're purposely trying to do something with your PAL, if you're trying to work on their stats or their passive, you can't do both. You got to choose one or the other. I say this because if you get a really good passive with Dr. Braun, but you're also trying to get that PAL stats up, it's better to keep that good passive than to try to get his stats up and end up losing it. Dr. Braun is a dice roll. He may give you something great. He may give you something crazy. He may give you something good one day, and then you think, okay, my pal's almost at 100 and everything. Let's just try to roll the dice one more day and see if I get it. No, you could lose it all the next day, so don't do that. So again, every day, and this is in-game day, not real-life day. This is every in-game day. So you can sleep or speed up time, whatever you want, but he will increase your pal stats by 15, or he'll drop them by 30, and he'll either give you a good or a bad passive. So if you get a good passive with him, I would suggest you take that passive and breed that into other pals to get the stats you want, especially if you're doing a legendary pal, because it's going to be very hard, very hard to get the passives you want. But Dr. Brown is a really good tool to help you with your breeding. Now, as far as breeding, ways to speed up breeding, like actually in the farm, there are very few ways to speed up breeding in the game. There's only really a couple things you can do. Now, one is having your pal know the ability Philanthropist. It is a passive ability. It's right here. You can see it in the database from the site I'm going to link to you. And when it's assigned to a breeding farm, it speeds up the breeding by 100%. This can be good and bad if you get this, because if you've got that passive on, it's going to be harder to breed the passive you want onto your pals. If you've got this, it's going to be a chance you're going to pass on Philanthropist versus one of the other passive you got if you're trying to get passives. Now, if you're breeding, say, for, Mazzarina meat, or if you're trying to breed for, an Anubis for souls, then it is perfectly great. It works just fine. But if you're trying to breed, like, actual battle pals and stuff like that, if you're trying to get passives, Philanthropist it sounds great, but overall, it's going to still waste your time because you still got to breed that out at some point. And finally, the last thing you can actually do is have either Nocturnal or be breeding Dark Pals. If you don't know, Dark Pals will work throughout the night, which includes breeding, as long as both of the pals are dark, or having these skills either Nocturnal or Vampiric, because they will then still work through the night. Breeding counts as work, giggity, and they will continue to work through the night if they've got Nocturnal or Vampiric on, or again if they're Dark Pals, because Dark Pals naturally stay up at night. Other than that, breeding is really tied to the work speed. Typically, you got to go in the config to mess with it, but it's not really worth it. I think you get one egg every 5 minutes by default. Like I said, having on Vampiric or having on Nocturnal will help them going through the night, and having on Philanthropist will help you with something you're trying to mass breed to, slaughter, for example. Again, I would not have it on for any battle pals you're doing. Alright, and finally, I talked about 4 different ways to make your pals stronger. That was breeding, which you just talked about. That was condensing. That was pal souls, and that was leveling. Now, as far as the order I would do all these things in, leveling, condensing, and pal souls, you can do those all together. You can do all that once you're done breeding. It doesn't matter what order you do any of those in. One's not going to affect the other as far as, doing one in a certain order, leveling up first and doing souls, and then doing the condensing, or doing condensing and then leveling soul. Do whatever order you want with those 3. The breeding is when things really matter as far as doing things in order. Now, I personally, when I'm trying to level up a new pal, I try to get the passives on the pals when I'm breeding first. I try to find the pals that have, passives I want, or just breed them in mass, try to get the mutations I want and then combine them. But I try to get all 4 passives I want onto a pal first, and then I will try to get its stats up. I'll do that by either getting a breeding pair of pals that both have all 4 passives I want, male and female, and then start breeding them until they start getting higher mutated stats, or I'll typically do that and then take the highest stat one I can find, and then since I do raids, I actually have the tonics that will actually increase your pal stats. Now, you can actually buy those, but typically raids are going to be the easier way to do that. I think you can buy them using dog coins. That takes a lot of dog coins. Personally, I just do raids, or I would just breed for the stats I want. But do your passives first, worry about your stats later, because stats are typically going to be easier to get than the passives are. You can actually raise any pal. Matter of fact, you can get a pal that has 0 attack, defense, and health, and technically get all those to 100. It's going to be hard, but you can do so. Passive, not so much. Get your passives first. After that, then go ahead and get your stats spread in. After that, once you got the perfect pal you want, go ahead and breed it, and then toss in all your souls and do your condensing. And while you're breeding, by the way, all these extra pals you're getting, use those pals to condense into other pals. Something I do too is, even if I don't have the pal I want bred by the time I got, the 116 I need, I'll still take one pal and I toss a bunch into it just to have it leveled up, ready to go to toss into the good one I want. So you don't got to worry about wasting cake. I mean, the pals you're using that you're breeding, you're probably going to condense them into other pals anyway. So that's one way you can condense them. But that is about the only other thing I can think about as far as breeding. If you've got any questions, let me know. I went into as much detail and explained it as well as I could. The only thing I don't have, unfortunately, for you are going to be the actual percentages. But it's going to be very difficult. I'd say as far as getting all the perfect stats you want, maybe 1 in 100 eggs that I breed has got all 4 passives I want, and it's got all three stats I want. It used to be even worse because you used to have to breed in moves, like I said in the beginning, but that's no longer a factor. So breeding is easier, but it is still going to be a while. I'd say, like I said, about 1 in every 100 eggs is going to give you exactly what you want. You may get luckier than that, but about every 100 is about what I'm seeing. So as far as basic breeding, that's about it. Again, everything I do on my server is these defaults for the game, except for my breeding. My eggs hatch automatically. That's the only thing I refuse to do at the default, because I played Ark for too many years and hatch eggs over weeks. I can't do it anymore. So all my eggs are hatched automatically. Everything else is by default, so, or as the default settings. So I try to keep it as close to the official servers as I can. But if you got any questions about anything, let me know. Thank y'all for coming by, and I will see you on the next video.